Okay, everyone, it's 11 o'clock. Let's get started. So most of today will be me going through what's on E-class and the syllabus. So giving you all a sense of what this class will involve before you decide to stick around. So if you haven't checked out the E-class page, you should do so. Lots of helpful stuff. There's of course questions part where you can post questions if they pertain to everyone. So if you have a question that pertains to you, obviously you can send me an email. But if it's a question about content or about the test, just add discussion topic, and I'll usually be good about replying quickly. There's always someone. Okay. Okay, while I wait for that to load, yeah, okay, there we go. So, probably the most important documents for your success in this course are these two right here. I have listed a lot of readings here. You do not need to worry about reading them, certainly not in detail. You can do well on the tests just with the information I give you in class. You'll probably want to look at the readings just to have a second look. But when paying attention in lecture, and when looking at the readings, let these guide what you focus on. The tests will entirely come from material in these two lists. They just have the terms, not the definitions. That's what you will add either in class or at home. So those are the most important. You should download them, have them on your computer. There's a small chance I add terms later as I go through, but I think that's unlikely. As we get closer to the test, I may say, okay, don't worry about these, those won't be on the test. I will be filming, as you can see, the lectures and posting them on YouTube. So if you miss a class or if you want to review something, you can watch the lectures there. However, there is a small attendance mark. There will be 5 random attendance quizzes, which will basically just be you clicking the right answer in class. Those will be at the beginning of class. So that's a small incentive to come to class because there will be a significant amount of in-class discussion in the class. We will at various points have breakout groups and discuss different topics. So I want to have some reward for showing up in class. But if you miss a class, it's only, at most you'll lose 1%, and you can catch up on the material by watching the lecture on YouTube. Okay, I have directions to office hours. The psych department is amazed, so that's there. The attendance quizzes I'll come back to at the end. For the paper, I'll say more about this when we go through the syllabus, but you'll be uploading a draft early there. I'll say the due date when I get to the syllabus. You will have to get a partner. You could get one today if you want, but I'll remind you as we get closer. You will be sending the draft both to E-class and emailing it to your partner. Your partner will then write around 1 page of peer review, so different comments about things that could be improved on the paper, and you'll be sending that to me as well. And then there's the final paper. I have here an example of a paper I wrote in grad school that's similar to the type you'll be writing. However, it's longer. It includes some sections that you don't need to include. So look at the syllabus for how long it should be and what you should include. It'll basically be a short version of this on a different topic, but it should have the same rough structure. The textbook is here. I didn't download this illegally. The University of Alberta has a deal such that the textbook in online capacity is available through the library, so I just downloaded it and put it here. And these are the extra readings, which don't panic about how many there are. Like I said, let the key terms guide what you focus on. And there's nothing that's testable that I won't be covering in class. Where these will come in handy is if you decide, if you want to review a little bit beyond what I say, but also if you want to write your paper. You can use, not any of these, you can use any of the empirical psychology readings in your paper. It's not like they're disqualified if they're listed here. Okay, before I open the syllabus, any questions about E-class? Okay. So this is the syllabus. This is moral psychology. So this is your chance if anyone else is in the wrong room and needs to leave. My name is David Simpson. I just finished my PhD this summer. You can call me David or Dr. Simpson. I don't really care. I always had a little bit of contempt for instructors who insisted on being called Dr. So-and-so. In my head, I was always like, you know, you teach at a college, you're gonna die, no one will remember you, it doesn't really matter. So David is fine. My office hours, there's directions on eClass. You all are lucky. I've scheduled my office hours for right after this class. So noon to 1. If that doesn't work for you, you can email me if you need to set up an appointment to ask questions. There are no TAs in this class. As far as emails, I have email notifications on my phone. I usually respond quickly. Don't be weirded out if I do. It just makes it easier because otherwise they pile up. I'm teaching 3 courses right now. And 2 of those are intros. They have a lot of people. Before you send me a question, go through these steps. First, just check to see if the answer is on the syllabus. Use Control F. You're all third year, you should all already know that. And as I mentioned earlier, if the question pertains to everyone, please post it on course questions. That way I don't have to answer the same question over and over again. But if the question pertains only to you, use my email. I'm happy to reply, and usually I'll reply pretty quickly. And last point, I strongly encourage in-class questions. This course is about things that all of you have opinions on. All of you, unless you're a psychopath, you have opinions about moral topics. And maybe if you're a psychopath, maybe keep them to yourself. No. But no, in all seriousness, I strongly encourage in-class questions. That will keep the course more interesting. Okay, so it has a brief description of the course. A content advisory. So as I mentioned, this class will involve in-class discussion where we'll be breaking into small groups and talking about different moral dilemmas, different topics related to morality. And as is inevitable, these questions are potentially controversial, could be things that you disagree with. And so I will say up front that is part of the course. Now, crucially, you don't have to agree with any particular perspective. You are only expected to understand the different views that are on offer. Okay, the textbook is on eClass, so that shouldn't be an issue. Okay, another thing I will warn you all about. I do not use PowerPoint in my lectures. If you looked at my student reviews, you will see that mentioned. Some students have said that they were initially skeptical of this, but eventually they saw the value. I find that when using the PowerPoint, there is too great of a temptation to just read off of it. So I use the whiteboard and video clips. I'll show the occasional picture on PowerPoint, but by and large, I'll be using the whiteboard. I already mentioned the key terms documents, and as I said, those should be your 2 best friends in this course. So here's the schedule. There's 4 units. Each unit ends with a test. There is no cumulative final. Each test is on just the previous few weeks. Each unit has between 1 and 3 chapters, and then a series of e-class readings that, generally speaking, supplement those chapters. The weird unit is Unit 3, which is on just 1 chapter and a larger number of e-class readings. That chapter relates to what I wrote my dissertation on, so I know more about it, so I've decided to spend more time on it. And then due dates for the paper. So paper draft due on the 18th of November, peer review due a week after that, and then the final paper due a little bit over a week after the peer review. For the first 2 things, you only need to upload to eClass For the first one, you need to upload to eClass and email to your partner, but for the next 2, you should bring a copy to class. So for the peer review, you should bring a copy to class, just because then you can discuss with your partner. We may have time set aside for that. I haven't decided for sure yet, but bring a physical copy to class. And then for the final paper, you have to both upload it to eClass and bring a physical copy for me. The physical copy is what I will mark. The online copy is what I will use to determine whether it's late. So please do both. And test 4 is in class during normal class time, as are all the other ones. So there's nothing during finals week. And to keep it simple, all assignments are due 1 minute before class on e-class. And don't take your chances with technology. Upload early to avoid being late because of a technical issue. So no class on these days. I have some study tips here. If you've taken cognitive psych, these will not be surprising to you, but if you find that you're struggling, use those. Probably the most important one, or the one I would take most advantage of, is number 1, test yourself, especially on the key terms. If you get that list of key terms, maybe have 2 versions of it, one with the definitions that you've written, one without. Get the copy without definitions, go through them and see how many you get. You will do 2 things by doing that. You will strengthen your memory of the material. There's studies showing that that's true. It's better than just rereading it. And you'll find out what you don't know. If you just reread, it is easy to lull yourself into a false sense of security. But testing yourself, you find out how much you actually know. Okay, I've gone through a bit of stuff now. Any questions so far? Okay. So here's the grade range, nothing unusual there. I will make a note about this. When it comes to requests for grade changes, I will not be making any changes to final grades based on student requests. At least not if they take the following form. If you email me saying, well, Dr. Simpson, I got a B+ and I really need an A-. If my mom finds out I got a B+, she won't love me, or whatever story you tell. My view is it's not fair for you to get a better grade just because you're good at writing a sad email. So just do your best and let the chips fall where they may. Having said that, this grading is a bit more, I hate to use the word subjective, but subjective than a multiple choice test. There's a lot of written stuff in this course. So if you email me saying I got X grade on the paper, can I see why I think I may have deserved a higher grade? That's fine. But simply saying, oh, I want a better grade because I'm so close to X grade, you're wasting your time typing that email. Yes?
Will you be giving feedback on whatever we hand in?
Yeah, so I won't be writing feedback on it, but if you come to office hours and ask about it, I'm happy to explain whatever you got. And I'm willing to suggestions that, oh no, I think I deserve better because of X, Y, Z. I mean, I'm marking all the papers. I'm a human being. It's possible I made a mistake. So I can give feedback, and I am willing to adjust on the basis of how well you did. So here's the weighting of grades. So nothing is very big. The paper is the largest component at 25%. The 4 tests are 15% each. And I've done that partly because this may be a bit of an unusual course. It incorporates some philosophy. If we're talking about morality, there's really no way to avoid some philosophy. And this will allow you to get a sense of how difficult the material is. So test 1, if you don't do as well on that, it's not super high stakes. Yes?
Are the tests written?
So I'll get to the tests, actually, glad you asked. So the next thing is the breakdown of grades. So for the attendance, just before I answer that, as I said earlier, there will be 5 random attendance quizzes. They are each multiple choice, and I'll just say, open your computer and type in, whatever, 4. So that's just, and that'll usually be at the beginning of class. So as far as the tests, here's the form they will take. There will be 9 definition questions, each worth 1%. So it'll literally be 9 things from the key terms. They will typically be the ones I spend more time on. I may throw in one semi-obscure one for the keeners, but generally speaking, they will be the important terms that I spend more time on. So if you know those key terms, 9 free marks right there. And then there will be 3 longer answers that are worth 2% each. For those, I am going to more or less tell you what they'll be about. I think in days past, I may have given those as take-home assignments, but I don't feel like checking that many things for ChatGPT. So for those, they will be in class, but I'm going to tell you more or less what they are. I forgot to mention this. Before each test, there's a test review day. That's when I'll be giving hints about what the 3 written questions are about. That's also, of course, a good day to bring questions. They also serve the function of, if I fall a bit behind and I have to finish some stuff, gives me a bit of a buffer. But it also serves the function of being a review day for any final questions you have. So that's what the test will look like. Any other questions about the tests? I'm sure that's at the forefront of your minds. Okay, paper draft. I'm not going to be as strict with this. It has to be a serious attempt, so if it's full of nonsense, you won't get full marks, but as long as it's a good faith attempt at a draft, you'll get full marks on that. Same with the peer review. It doesn't have to be, brilliant, just a good faith effort to, engage with the person's paper and have some recommendations. You will probably find that doing the peer review helps you too. Because often this happened to me in grad school, I'll read someone's paper and I'm like, this is so unclear, he's not explaining these terms. And then I'll think, I didn't explain my technical terms either. So it will have that benefit as well. And then the paper, which I guess is I talk about in more detail in the next section, but 20% of the grade there will come from the content of the paper, and 5% will be APA style. So I'll talk a bit about the paper, I might as well, we're here. So please read this section very carefully before you do the paper. No sense in losing marks for not following instructions. So it's due 10:59 a.m. on December 4th. As I already mentioned, you have to submit 2 versions. I have some stuff about formatting, like double-sided. You'll just write your name in pen or pencil on the document. I don't like title pages, so just write it on the document somewhere with a pen. You will lose 2% every day that it's late, and just to make it simple, I'll be strict with lateness. If it's 1 minute late, that's 1 day, 2%. So just upload early, don't leave it to chance. The references page should have 4 sources, each of which you must cite. 2 of them have to be empirical psychology or neuroscience or some other social science articles. When I say empirical, I mean, here's an easy way to tell, they should have a methods section. So some of the readings on eClass are philosophy articles or book chapters. You can use those as your other 2 sources, but 2 of the sections are just summarizing study 1 and study 2. Those 2 sources have to have a methods section. So they can be psychology, neuroscience, or conceivably they could be anthropology or something, but they have to be empirical articles. So as you can see here, 4 sections. 1 section summarizing the general area, so you can include your other 2 sources there as kind of review. And then 1 section summarizing 2 specific studies. And then the 4th section, maybe the most difficult, is at least different from what you may be used to, a section summarizing your research proposal. So you can maybe notice some shortcomings of the 2 studies or something they don't address, and you have to come up with some way of adding to it. You don't have to do a study, this is not 212, but you have to explain what a study in this area would look like in a way that would contribute to the area. Don't stress too much, each section is only 5%, so if you have some difficulty with section 4, you won't lose too many marks. You should all know APA style by now, but if for some reason you've forgotten, just download the template, like the paper example I have, use that. I do the same thing for my intro students. I give them a template to use. As far as I'm concerned, the average APA mark should be 100%. You just have to do what the template says. And yeah, intro psych students still manage to creatively change the style. So hopefully the average on the APA is 5 out of 5, but we'll see. Please write the paper on a different topic from mine. You cannot use the 2 articles in my example paper for obvious reasons. It can be something on a, so the paper I have there is on empathy. It can be like vaguely related to that, but don't have the same 2 sources. Even something close is potentially risky. Plagiarizing me is a bad idea. I know my own writing pretty well, so that's all I'll say about that. Okay, using artificial intelligence. So I already mentioned this in passing. For the paper, I will be asking ChatGPT to write me a few essays on topics related to moral psychology. I'll say up front, in addition to being not allowed, it's a bad idea to ask ChatGPT to summarize studies or books. If you've ever tried to ask it to summarize a book that you know, it often hallucinates. So in addition to being risky because you may get a 0, it has a habit of hallucinating. But just to be clear, if I see any exact quotes from ChatGPT or some other AI software, that is plagiarism and that will result in a 0 for the paper. However, I'm going to be very careful how I say this, I have no problem with you using AI software to find grammar errors. Like people already use, what's that one that the annoying ads are always for? Grammarly. So I don't see much of a difference there. Now, don't ask AI to fix them. You should not get it to write anything for you, but running it through the software and asking it to find grammar errors and then fixing them, I see no problem with that. Go with whatever your other instructors say for those classes, but in this class, I think that's perfectly fine. You can record lectures if you want to. That's sort of a waste because I am filming it here. The only thing that won't be posted on YouTube is the video clips I show because then it gets taken down for copyright. But anything that you want to record or take pictures of what I write on the board, that's all fine. Okay, for missed exams, I am, as a rule, strict about documentation, especially if you email me close to an exam. If you know now that you're going to have a scheduling conflict, like you're going to be away or you have surgery, if you tell me now, I'm not going to be strict. I'm generally going to take your word for it if you say up front. But if you email me a couple days before the test saying, oh, I don't feel so well, that won't be sufficient. So I do need some kind of documentation. Please use common sense. I had an instructor who told the following story about this. He gave a spiel similar to the one I just gave about documentation. And he noted that around midterms, grandmas drop like flies. At midterms, everyone's grandma coincidentally passes away. And so he said, I hate to be rude, but I do need some documentation. And he said that a note came to his mailbox saying that a package had arrived that was too large for the mailbox. And he went to security, and he had a really deep voice. He's like, I went to security, and there's grandma's ashes waiting for me. So don't do anything like that. In that case, doctor's note or I guess death certificate or a picture of one is fine. There will be no practice tests that I've made, but each of the tests will be similar in terms of the level of difficulty, and none of them are worth very much. So the first test, if you do well on that, you're studying well enough. The rest should be of similar difficulty. Okay, final point. I added this this semester because of a complaint I got. Someone posted the following on Reddit. Now it was to the left side and the lectern was on the other side, so I'm pretty sure it wasn't me. So as I say here, we are all mammals, we all produce a scent. This room is quite crammed, it's more crammed than I thought it would be. So just a friendly reminder, shower, use deodorant, wash your clothes, all that good stuff. And if any of you are male and are thinking, no bro, I don't need to shower, I just naturally smell good. If that thought is in your head, you need to shower more than anyone. So just doing us all a favor. Okay. That's all I have to say about the syllabus. Any questions about the syllabus? Okay. Okay, I'm still good. So I want to make a few general points to start us off. We'll have one little bit of discussion time, and then we'll go ahead and do the first attendance quiz. You're all going to get 1% for showing up. So there you go. By the way, does anyone, you don't have to raise your hand, but if you don't have a phone or a laptop with you, or if you don't have one to bring with you to class, you can come see me after class and we'll work something out. I suspect most of you, if not all of you, do. So the first distinction I want to make is the distinction between moral philosophy, sometimes called ethics, and moral psychology. It's felt. So moral philosophers ask conceptual questions about morality. So they may ask a question like, what do moral statements mean? When we say things like, you should do this, or so-and-so is an evil person. They may debate a question like, is morality an objective domain? Are there objective moral truths, or is it all subjective or culturally constructed? And more concretely, they may argue about what the right answers are. So, is the death penalty morally permissible or not? A moral philosopher may ask a question like that. In moral psychology, we are concerned with empirical questions having to do with morality. So, whereas a moral philosopher may ask, what's the right answer to a moral debate like capital punishment? A moral psychologist will ask, what's going on in people's heads when they form beliefs about capital punishment, about the ethics of capital punishment? So they're not concerned with what the right answer is or whether there is a right answer, but about how humans think about moral questions. Now, the line will be fuzzy in some cases, but that's a good first approximation as far as the difference between these. So we're going to start with a topic we'll come back to in Chapter 8, but probably the most famous moral dilemma. How many of you have heard of the trolley dilemma? Okay, so most of you. So we'll start easy. We'll start with a little kind of fun discussion activity. And it will help illustrate the difference between these two things. So in one version, there's a trolley going along, and I have messy writing and bad drawing, but hopefully you get the idea. And there are 5 people that will die if you let the trolley go. So in the first version, you are standing beside a switch that you can pull and redirect the trolley to hit one person. So if you do nothing, 5 people die. If you pull the lever and redirect it, 1 person dies. So show of hands, who thinks who thinks you should pull the lever morally? Who thinks you should not pull the lever? Really? Oh, okay, interesting. Usually about a third, 20%. Okay, so that's the first version. The next version, you're standing on a footbridge. And conveniently, there is a very large man standing on the edge. In some versions, to be more politically correct, they say a guy with a very large backpack, whatever. So the trolley's going along, and pretend that you're a trolley expert, and you know that he's heavy enough to stop the trolley all by himself, and that if you don't, each of the 5 will die. So all he requires is a little push, and the 5 will be saved. Show of hands, who thinks it is moral to push the large man in front of the trolley? 1 very confident hand. 3, 4. So a smaller number. Okay, so we're going to have, I guess, 2 separate discussion times. So break off into maybe, I'm gonna say 3 to 5 people. The first question we're gonna ask is, what's the right answer to these two dilemmas? And notice that there's some tension in most of your answers, because most of you said it's okay to redirect the trolley to kill one person, but not to push someone. Leaving aside what's going on in your psychology, is that rational? Is that the right answer to these two dilemmas? So get into groups, give your thoughts, and I maybe appoint one person to be the representative if I call on your group later. How's it going, y'all? Okay, everyone's getting a bit quieter. Okay, everyone wrap up your conversation.
Wait, what?
So what did we come up with? Does anyone want to speak for their group and say some possible differences between these cases that justify pulling the switch but not pushing the man? Okay, yeah.
Well, with pulling the switch, it's more impersonal, but with pushing the man, it's much more personal because you're up close. Like, you might
Right.
see their physical reaction to it, and it just seems like more active.
So it's definitely more active and more personal, and so one thing you could say is it's more wrong if you're more up close and personal and actually harming. Any different thoughts or other contributions? Yep.
We didn't really discuss this, but with the bigger guy, it feels worse because he's only dying because he's able to stop the trolley. Like, he's only dying.
Oh,
because
interesting.
he's kind of larger, I guess, or has a backpack on.
Either way, yeah, so it's almost like discriminatory to
Yeah.
Interesting, I hadn't thought of that. Okay, that's an interesting point, yeah.
We had discussed kind of like the bystander effect, where it's like the person, another guy wearing the backpack is another person that could also make a decision to save the 5 people. Why isn't me doing that?
By make a decision, do you mean he could jump in front of himself?
Unfortunately, yes.
Right, so you're kind of taking away his agency. You're not letting him.
Yeah, like pushing him is like, you're doing this. It's like you are also another person who can think about this.
Okay, interesting. Any other potential differences or things that could justify it? Yes.
To me, it's like, in the first situation, everyone is like tied down on the trolley tracks, whereas in the second one, it's just some guy, right? And so I think it makes a difference, ethically speaking, because if you say that you can just kill one person to save 5 lives, you can talk about that. I think there's a classic situation with like organ donations, where it's like, can you just kill a
Yeah.
stranger to donate 4 organs to save 4 people? Ethically speaking, it just feels wrong.
It feels good.
Why? Because their situation is different. They're not all in the same situation.
Good. We'll be talking about that exact case in a later class. It's a good example. Okay, last comment.
We didn't talk about this, but for me, it's just, what if the big guy wants to do it? Like, what if he willingly wants to sacrifice himself too, you know? Because in that case, if you're stopping him from sacrificing himself, you're then responsible.
Well, you're just helping him sacrifice himself. No, it's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Now, with your same groups, so what we were talking about now is all in the domain of moral philosophy. What's the right answer to these two dilemmas, and what principles could justify giving a different answer? But leaving that aside, it's empirically the case that most people are similar to this class. Usually more people say no to the switch than in this class, but a majority say that it's okay to pull the switch, but it's not okay to push the large man. Leaving aside whether that's right or wrong, discuss amongst your group why. What's going on in people's heads that make, and it may be similar, but what is it that makes people say it's okay to pull the switch but not the trolley? So this may overlap with what you've said, so maybe a bit briefer, but discuss amongst your groups. So even if, so we're leaving aside the philosophical question, what are some things that we came up with as far as psychological reasons why people may respond differently to these two cases? What did different groups come up with? Yep.
With the lever, it's less direct because you pull the lever, which then switches the track and then moves the trolley. But when you're pushing him, you're directly pushing him in front of the trolley.
And therefore it feels different just because you're directly pushing. Yep, okay. Similar or different answers, yeah?
Well, we came up with like different stuff. Like one of us said it's the responsibility that you feel when you push someone. You're kind of doing it for them. and also how you justify it in your own head, like the difference of how you justify it, and also how other people will see you, like.
That's it. We'll actually come back to the last one you said, how other people see you. Good, so there's how people see you. Someone said that you're actively pushing. I forget what the first thing you said was, but these are all good. Yep.
We were talking about how like the separation of death has been normalized in our culture, where it's like in like action movies, like we'll see like people be separate from, or like people are glorified for killing one person at a distance to save a bunch of people.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard that before. Yeah, right. So in the action movies, you shoot someone at a distance, or you fly a drone, or whatever, and it. But killing someone up close and personal feels more icky. We're not as desensitized to that. That's interesting. Okay. Maybe one more thought. Yep.
We had said that in the first scenario, they're both kind of already on the tracks, and so they're both at risk and in that situation. But in the second scenario, the guy isn't in any danger. You're actually putting him in that situation.
Yep, interesting thought. So these are all good. So this is kind of a teaser because we will not be coming back to this until chapter 8. But what we'll see in chapter 8 is the work of Joshua Green, who has argued that different types of psychological processes are activated in these two dilemmas. How many of you know about the dual process model? So system 1, system 2. So the idea is that system 1 is quick and intuitive. There's different names for it in the literature. And system 2 is more slow and deliberative. And there's evidence that this type of dilemma activates more system 2 type thinking. So you think in terms of cost benefits. But the fat man dilemma activates more gut reaction, emotional, intuitive type thinking, and leads to people being averse to it. And then what they say after is just kind of rationalizing it. They're trying to come up with reasons to justify this gut reaction that they have. So we'll come back to that at a later time, but hopefully this helps to see the difference between moral philosophy and moral psychology, though there is some overlap. Okay, any questions about anything I've said so far? Okay, so as a final thing for the day, we'll be done a bit early. Let's do attendance quiz 1. This is a little practice to make sure this actually works. So I'll stick around if you have questions for me, and I'll also be in office hours after. If not, see you all next class.